Hello, my name is Andrew Flushy. I'm a Virginia traffic attorney. In many cases, when people are looking at possibly losing their license due to a traffic charge, they're very concerned if you're going to be able to get a restricted license or not. Some people call it a worker's permit, some people call it a worker's license. There's all sorts of names for it, but the law calls it a restricted operator's license. And what that means is you can get, even if you're suspended, you can sometimes get a restricted privilege to let you drive for certain specific things. For example, to drive for work, for school, to drive to doctor's appointments, to drive to take care of minor children in your care, to drive for court-ordered visitation, to drive for any court-ordered treatment or programs like ASAP or community-based probation. And then also you can drive one day a week to a church or worship service. So there's quite a few things, and there's a few other miscellaneous provisions. But when are you allowed to get that kind of license? There's some cases where you can and some where you can't. The easiest example of a case where you can normally get a restricted license is for DUI or DWI. If you're convicted, your license is suspended on the first offense for 1 year in Virginia. But during that 1 year, you normally would be eligible to get a restricted license to drive for all those permissible purposes and to your Alcohol Safety Action Program classes. Now, effective July 1st of 2012, you will have to have ignition interlock on your vehicle to get that license, but you'd be eligible normally. Now, that's not to say you'll always get one. Sometimes the judge may not authorize it, but it's a good example of a case where you normally can get a restricted permit. A good example of a case where you can't is if you're convicted of DUI and then during that 1 year period, you drive outside your restrictions. You're going to be charged with driving on a DUI revoked license under 18.2-272. Under that statute, if you're convicted, your license is suspended for a whole nother year and you have no possibility to get a restricted license. It's 1 year, what we call a hard suspension, so there is no driving whatsoever during that year. Another good example is for driving on suspended. Now, let's say you forget to pay a ticket on time and you get it behind, DMV suspends you. Most people think it's not a big deal, but then you're driving to work or driving to DMV to pay the fee or something, and you get pulled over and convicted of driving on suspended. Then in that case as well, the court has to suspend you again for an additional period of time. It could be anywhere from a day or two to 90 days sometimes. And in those suspensions, you can't get a restricted license either. There's one exception to that, depending on fines and costs, but it gets really complicated. As you can see, you're not always eligible for a restricted license, and it does get complicated about when you are eligible. So it's one important reason to talk to a traffic attorney if any of this is an issue in your case.